Hello, this is Pac-Man Championship Edition, the port to the NES that was released in Namco Museum Archives Volume 1 in 2020 to Steam and consoles by Bandai Namco, Namco Bandai, whatever they are. And it was widely hailed as this remarkable technical achievement. The credits in the game credited console retro port specialists M2 who've done a lot of console ports in the past. Thing is, this particular demake, as some people like to call it, this port of a originally Xbox 360 game from 2007 to a new quote-unquote new NES game in 2020 was not made by Namco or M2. And I'm gonna just paste in copies of my talking points here. They polished up an unacknowledged, unreleased 2008 homebrew port by Japanese 8-bit console port hobbyist Coke774, and Coke774 does have a channel here on YouTube, which I will put a link to in the description under the video on YouTube. It's just at Coke0774. There's a 0 inserted in there, but I'll have that link under the video. So that was a 2008 homebrew port, and not released, but as a quote-unquote new game by Namco in 2020. And as part of a collection that you had to pay, I think it came out at $20. So there's various websites and game journalist sites in 2020 after the collection released with this supposedly new NES game in it, sort of found archived evidence that it wasn't just made by Namco recently. And they put that together on the internet, and I will be borrowing heavily from them, and I'll link all my sources as well. So the timeline that I've sort of cobbled together from reading these various sources goes like this. So in 2007, Pac-Man Championship Edition released on Xbox 360. The next year, something interesting happened. 2008, Coke774 posts a video of their NES port. So Coke774 appears to be Japanese, at least they write in Japanese. But they didn't call it a Famicom port, they called it an NES port from the start. So they post video of their, what they called Pac-Man CE for NES. That was in the title of their YouTube video. They post video of it to YouTube and the Japanese video service Nico Nico. And they also posted screenshots of it to their personal website. In 2009, the next year, a presumed copy of their 2008 NES CE video appeared on Vimeo. And this video on Vimeo is still there at that address, vimeo.com/2581153. That is still up. And it wasn't posted, as far as I can tell from the username there, it was not posted by Coke774 themselves. It looks like somebody probably just copied the video from YouTube or Nico Nico and copied it onto Vimeo. And we're fortunate that they did that, because that's where it's been preserved. Video-wise, anyway. Now there's a bit of a time jump, so that was 2009. The next date I have is 2013. In 2013, Coke774 tweeted that it's been a while since, and this is Google translated from Japanese, it's been a while since I received an email from a foreigner asking for a Pac-Man ROM. And they had mentioned this Pac-Man NES thing on their Twitter before that, I think. I don't like looking at Twitter or X as it has become now. But some of the sites that pulled this information together in 2020 made a number of references to their Twitter account. So so people were seeing this video and were asking about this ROM. It's not clear who this was, but potentially it could have been some kind of business inquiry. The next year, in 2014, a different Twitter user shared a photo of a Kirby Famicom game cartridge, it's pink and all that stuff, with a crudely printed sticker. I mean, it was just looked like it, come out of a dot matrix or laser home printer, that said Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. That was this printed home user-made label that somebody had stuck on it, which suggests that perhaps this ROM that Coke 774 had been made into a actual cartridge. And Coke 774, in one of their videos, had said something like, I forget what it was, but it was something it was basically saying that they were kind of happily surprised that it actually ran, or they got to try it on actual hardware and it worked. So we can see apparent photographic evidence of that in 2014. That's in one of the articles that I will post. It's by a journalist, I forget his name. Anyway, you'll see it in a link. The next year, 2015, now this is from that's a typo. It's from a 2020 interview. I need to correct my notes here. Where are my notes? That's a 2020 interview, okay. A 2020 interview with the Namco director of the NES Championship Edition, that was included in Archives Volume 1. The director said, and this was probably translated, but they used this term negotiates. They said in 2020 that they had negotiated to make a 3DS port, to make it as a standalone 3DS port, not in a collection with other games or anything, and that they had started on that. They'd been working on that for 5 years, so that would put it back in 2015. So, in 2013, Coke 774 had tweeted about an inquiry into the Pac-Man ROM from a foreigner, and then 2 years later, according to the Namco director's timeline, Namco started working on a 3DS port of this NES version. So maybe sometime between 2013 and 2015, Namco and Coke 774 had come to some kind of agreement that Namco would publish their homebrew port of Championship Edition to the NES. That's just a guess, but it seems logical to me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just some idiot on the internet. Next date is 2018. Oh, what? I'm copying that from my wrong window. I'm really good at this. Hang on a second. 2018. I spelled that. That's good. Coke 774's YouTube video that they had posted in 2008. And this is, you can see this from archive.org, captures of YouTube from 2018. That video that they had posted showing, it was about 6 minutes. This is the one you can see on Vimeo still. On YouTube, it was up to nearly 150,000 views. So it's not like this was exactly under the radar. In 10 years, it racked up 150,000 views. So that's, what does that qualify as, like a minor viral sensation? And I don't know what the views might have been on Nico Nico, which is the Japanese video sharing site. So it's not like, again, it's not like this homebrew, at least the video of it that they showed it off in, was unknown. Now, it's important to note that their homebrew version has never materialized in, downloadable ROM form, as far as as I know, or any source I could find appears to know. So that they've never published that ROM, and you know, I wonder if they were holding out this whole time, hoping that they could make a deal with Namco, and then if they did make a deal with Namco, that deal probably included them not publishing, not releasing their original ROM. But who knows? You know, maybe they were concerned that Namco could have sued them or something before they made that deal. Presumed deal, I should say. I don't know if they made a deal, but it seems, again, probably some kind of deal was made. So that's an archive.org capture from the 2018 YouTube page. Oh my gosh, I'm copying from the wrong notes again. Don't try this at home. In 2019, Coke 774 set their NES CE videos private. So those videos, you can find the URLs through archive.org, and if you go to those URLs, they don't say nothing exists there. They say the video is private. So they didn't delete them. They also took down their personal website, where they published screenshots of their homebrew port to NES. But again, you can find captures of those screenshots, for instance, from their personal website on archive.org. And the graphics are very similar to the Namco released 2020 version, and I'll come back to that because there's a much better source than me has broken down exactly what the differences are. So that gets us to next year, and that was the year before the official Namco release. So, oh my gosh, I've typoed everything. So starting not in 2000, in 2020, Namco, before they released it, they were teasing this new, well, they called it a new, quote-unquote new, NES version of Championship Edition. But was it new, or was it actually sort of polished up 2008 homebrew that Namco did not make themselves? That kind of seems to be more the case. Also in 2020, a little later I think, Namco's director, and this was in that same interview I quoted before where they were talking about something 5 years earlier, so that would have put that back in 2015. They said in this interview, or was it a tweet, I don't know, while there are some people who knew about this project beforehand, I bet even they will still be surprised at the finished game. And they made no mention of Coke 774. So at the time that they said this, to at least people who didn't know about, you know, to the maybe 150,000 people or plus who had seen that video, they would not have known what the heck he's talking about. What did he mean by had seen this project beforehand? But that, it seems likely in retrospect that he was referring to that video, that semi-viral, minor viral YouTube sensation video, that had by this time in 2020 been taken down. So the director was asserting that even though they had seen this game as far back as 2008 on YouTube or Nico Nico, they'll still be surprised at the finished game, even though I'm not. That's a bold assertion based on an analysis by the Cutting Room Floor, which I'll get to in a moment because that's coming up here in the same year. Okay, so my next little point, still in 2020, is the actual release of the game. And I didn't go by months. I'm not very good at this. But anyway, still in 2020, Namco did release the NES port of Championship Edition, Pac-Man Championship Edition, as, you know, it was kind of the main selling point in their Namco Museum Archives Volume 1, which is available even now on Steam and consoles. And the credits for the game are entirely to M2, as I said before, which is not a Namco team. It's a Japanese game development studio that has specialized for years, decades, on porting retro games to current consoles. And I have one more item from 2020. Actually, no, I have 2 more items. I can't even count. I need to make some screen room here. So again, still no mention. Namco had never publicly mentioned, at least not in English, and not in Japanese as far as my English sources know. They had not mentioned Coke 774's involvement at all. And the credits in the collection itself only identify M2 as having been the ones working on this port, this NES version port. But Ars Technica put together some work by other journalists as well as their own and other people on the internet, and they took this evidence of this archived evidence of that this game was perhaps not new, that it was as old as 2008, in fact, by this homebrew coder, Coke 774. And by the way, on Coke 774's, or it's, on YouTube, it's Coke 0774 is their actual channel name. I think you can just do @Coke 774 and that'll get you there. I forget. Anyway, on their channel now, you can still see other work they've done. They show off other stuff they've done, like as recently as their most recent video, I think from 4 months ago. They're doing a port, of course, an unlicensed port of Legend of Zelda to, NES Legend of Zelda. They've been porting that to the Epic Cassette Vision console, I think it's called, an old, I think, 8-bit console. So this is just a thing they do. They've done this with a bunch of games, and not always to NES. Like currently they're porting an NES game to a different 8-bit console. So they're into this kind of thing, and this is just what they do. But this is one that they have since scrubbed from their public media. They took down or set to private those videos of the Pac-Man Championship Edition port they'd done. So Ars Technica scraped together the archived evidence of Coke 774's having, made this game basically back in 2008, and they confronted Namco with it, and Namco, they made this statement that the first sentence that I didn't bother putting in here was something like, we're grateful that over the years many people have taken an interest in Pac-Man and making, fan stuff for Pac-Man. And then they said, in the case of Coke 774, and I think this is the one and only time they ever actually mentioned Coke 774, and they capitalized the 774's handle for some reason, his work, and I don't know that Coke 774 had ever identified their own gender, so maybe they wouldn't have appreciated that from Namco, was highly appreciated by our team, and we worked with him officially to implement his design into our game. And I think this is probably translated from Japanese. No, this is just a statement Ars Technica got. So highly appreciated by our team, and we worked with him. So, let's face it, it seems like Coke 774 probably just gave them, their work. There's like, here's this port I've made. And they say, worked with him officially to implement his design into our game. Well, for one thing, if it was official, why didn't you acknowledge that? It's possible that, the names in the credits for M2 in the game for this port, it's possible one of those is the real life name of Coke 774, I suppose, but looking at those names and clicking their links in Moby games that show other things they've appeared as in the credits for, all those people have credits in multiple games, most of them like dozens of games, and it seems kind of unlikely that one of them was, also in their spare time a bedroom coder, working on these homebrew ports of old games to other old consoles. It's possible, but it seems unlikely, but who knows? So they say they worked with him officially. Well, you didn't mention it before. How is that official? I guess they're just saying we did, they're acknowledging that, yes, we worked with this person. But they're not really saying that we got the game from them and then added some polish to it. They're saying our game. I mean, I guess if a deal was struck, they probably technically own it now, and hopefully, well, I don't care about hopefully, but presumably this time, if they did make a deal, they didn't sort of botch it up like Midway, who was their distributor back in the day in the US, had sort of botched up Pac-Man, or Miss Pac-Man, because Miss Pac-Man itself was originally essentially it was going to be this add-on kit, this unlicensed add-on kit made by a bunch of Boston hackers, basically, under the company, GCC or GCC, I think. And Midway struck a deal with them for Pac-Man, or for Miss Pac-Man, but that famously, the deal still included paying royalties to GCC, and Namco sort of, that sort of grated on Namco over the years to the point where now they're disowning Miss Pac-Man and scrubbing Miss Pac-Man out of their history. So hopefully that won't happen with Pac-Man Championship Edition. And they've actually made a better deal, and hopefully Coke 774 got more than this half-assed acknowledgement. Hopefully they actually were well compensated for their work, because they did this amazing they made this amazing technical achievement, but it's also an artistic achievement. I mean, if you look at what they did, and let me actually hide this for a second. I mean, like, look at this. In fact, when you play this version, I like this version better than the big boy console version that came out on 360 originally and since came out on PS3 and PS4 and Steam and stuff. It's smoother. It takes out the screen shake when you eat ghosts. It doesn't do a screen shake and a big flash effect anymore. It's just a lot smoother to play. I think it actually looks nicer. It sort of pulls together what were different pixel resolution elements in the 360 version, and of course they're all running in a unified low resolution now. But also just, it streamlines the whole game. It doesn't have so many modes that there's no explanation for what the difference between them was. It takes out a sort of ominous undertone second music piece that starts gradually playing and ramping up as you play through the game until you hit the inevitable time over that I didn't like in the original. It just feels scary and bad. So that's not here anymore. You just play until time runs out. Yeah, it's also faster. It's actually faster than the, big boy console PC version. It just runs faster. Even at the starting speed, it's faster. And then once you're fully pointed up and you're getting 50-point bonuses for every dot, it's faster. So it's just a faster, smoother, sharper game. It doesn't have all the sort of hazy color effects and the maze in the Xbox 360 version and later versions is sort of foggily rendered. The walls are they have a blurring effect on them. That's all. It doesn't have that. It's very sharp pixels here, which to me is just nicer. It's just a nice, clean look. I think this is a better version. In any case, it is a huge technical and artistic achievement by, apparently, this individual Japanese homebrew coder. So this is the only acknowledgement they've got publicly from Namco, which seems kind of crummy to me, but that's just my opinion. And then the last thing, also in 2020, as I mentioned before, the cutting room floor, TCRF, it can be abbreviated, and that's, I think, is it tcrf.com? No, .net, sorry. They conducted and published on their website a detailed analysis of the differences between that 2009 video, which presumably is a copy of Coke 774's 2008 video that they have since set to private, but that 2009 video is still on Vimeo. It's also since been copied back to YouTube by somebody else. I think their handle was Crazy Auto or something on YouTube. But TCRF, the Cutting Room Floor, who is a site that specializes in comparing versions of games and analyzing and finding, bits that are still like in the game data, but not actually normally accessible in the game. They did a detailed breakdown of what they could see the differences are between what you see of Coke 774's homebrew version in the video and the actual published game that came out in 2020. And basically, and you should go read that page, which I will link under the video, but it basically came down to M2 polished up the visual effects. So for instance, when it was just there, when the screen shifts and the maze shifts and a new part of the maze appears after, what is it? It's either after you eat the dots or after you eat the fruit thing. I think it's actually after you eat the fruit. It like refreshes and changes one of the sides of the maze. And there's a horizontal line effect that goes across, or well, it's a vertical line effect that goes horizontally across and sort of wipes to the new maze. In the original video version that you can see, that's from Coke 774. That's just a white line, and it kind of glares a bit. And in the 2020 release version by M2, that line is actually, if you look at it closely, it's hard to see, but it's actually composed of tiny little Pac-Man and Ghost sprites. It's actually really cool. So M2 did stuff like they changed some of the effects like that, and sort of the pulsing effects around the sides of the maze, I think were changed by them. They replaced the sound. I think pretty much entirely replaced most of the sound, which in Coke 774's version was taken from other Namco games for the most part. And kind of the third major thing, and M2 also made various graphical tweaks all around, and they slightly altered some of the layouts of the title screen and the score summary screen, but they didn't wholeheartedly change or replace those. So mostly what you see in the final version are the graphical designs, like the main logo and all that stuff. That is Coke 774's original 2008 work. That's their pixel art, or whoever they were working with at the time, but they'd never mentioned anybody else. So it's probably them. It's probably them. It's their 2008 pixel artwork that's still in the final game. M2 did change the colors of the ghosts as one of those visual tweaks. The ghosts in Coke 774's version, what we see of it in the video, are colored. I think TCRF said their colors were more like the NES port of Pac-Man, back in the day, which did have weirdly colored ghosts. Because that's also in this Namco Museum Archives Volume 1, the actual official Namco Pac-Man release from, I think that actually didn't even come out until the early 90s on NES, which is insane, but because, I think that might have been because Tengen, who was actually formed by Atari, Tengen was a company formed by Atari, and Tengen infamously created all these unlicensed games that for Nintendo for the NES. So that was all that must have been an initiative by Atari to kind of sabotage Nintendo's hold on the US market, right? I mean, that's just nuts. But anyway, Tengen had beaten everybody to the punch by putting out an unlicensed Pac-Man for NES in the 80s. Namco hadn't put one out in the States. And Tengen did. And then Namco waited until I think it was the early 90s to put out their official Pac-Man port on NES in the States. So that's just crazy. But yeah, so I think it was TCRF said that Coke 774's version used the ghost colors from that official Namco, original Pac-Man on NES. Although it's weird too, the colors in that are weird, because like they used, actually you can see it here with these dots. See how these dots here are orange? That's pretty much the color that they are in the, 1993 or whatever it was, Namco NES Pac-Man game. They used orange, but Pac-Man was that color too. Pac-Man was freaking orange. And like the red ghost wasn't the bright red that we're used to. It was this very dark red. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with those colors back in the day. But anyway, it looked, I think it was that Coke had used, Coke 774 had used those colors, and one of the tweaks M2 evidently made, because it's different in this release version, is that they made the colors more like the arcade version. Okay, notice the press start button, and notice the A flashing there, and how it's got an indentation on the right hand side as if it's the letter R. That was not in Coke 774's version, so that appears to be kind of a bug, a mistake that M2 made when they were converting things. As I said, like the rest of the logo and stuff, you can see that is Coke 774's work, but somehow M2 sort of botched up the press start button or whatever thing there, and they put that little indentation in the side of the A and start that was not actually there in Coke 774's 2008 version. And finally, the sort of major thing that M2 added was they added more fruit. I think TCRF said it was like only 6 fruits were in Coke 774's version. And you see here, you've got various fruits, the apple and the orange. So one of the things that M2 did was add the rest of the fruits from the Xbox 360 version. And I forget what the total was. I think it's something like 20 or something like that. So more fruit. So that's basically what M2 evidently did. But again, the game appeared to be, at least from the video, more or less done by a single homebrew coder in 2008. So yeah, I mean, that's what this video was made to tell you. I've got credits. And again, I will have the actual clickable links for these under the video. How many can I fit on the screen? Let's find out. So Ars Technica kind of was the main source. They really did a good job of pulling everything together. That's a 2020 article after the game was released. They took a lot of their work. I think the author's name was Matt Hawkins. They got a lot of their info from that medium.com article, which I think was by game journalist Matt Hawkins. I may be butchering their name, if so I apologize. That came out before the Ars Technica piece, and that had put together a lot of these archived details that had not before then been publicized widely. And then it was Silicon Era that I think maybe both of those articles sourced had a very short, I guess you could call it an interview, basically a long quote from the Namco director of Championship Edition, talking about that they'd started on it after negotiating for a 3DS standalone version. They started working on that in 2015, and then also saying that, even though numerous people may have seen this project before, and again, they didn't reference Coke 774 at all, they said that people will be surprised by this eventual version. But, based on the cutting room floor's breakdown, it's not very different, really, from the 2008 version. So the second half of my sources here, let's get these in. Moby Games has clickable credits, copied from the credits roll in the probably the Steam version, because I did look at the credits in that when I bought it off Steam and then extracted the ROMs. And you can click those M2, I think it calls it like bonus game or something, links in that, bonus game 1 or something. You can click the names of the Japanese developers from M2 there and see all the other stuff they've worked on. So is one of those actually Coke 774? It seems unlikely. There is one name that is not actually linked there that I noticed. They credit, and I forget what they credit them as, but there's just a name that's just capital B. It's all capitals. B-E-E-P. So somebody is credited as Beep. Was that Coke 774? If so, that's a pretty weak acknowledgement. That was probably somebody else. And it's not really known who the heck they are. Oh, this isn't fitting on screen. That's embarrassing. Hang on. Can I fix this? Do I have the skills? Kind of fixed. Oh wait, that whole thing didn't fix, man. Oh, probably my previous ones didn't fit either. Oh, this sucks. Oh no. Oh, that just barely fit. Awesome. That Google link is to the tweet that the 2013 tweet by Coke 774's account, where they said that it had been a while since they'd been contacted by a foreigner about the Pac-Man ROM, because I don't like linking directly to Twitter anymore. It's gotten too gross. And then that final link is the cutting room floors analysis of the differences between what you can see in the video as it's been preserved on, well, they linked to a copy on YouTube, but that was posted, I think, in the past 7 months or so. And it seems to be a copy of the one from Vimeo, which has been there since 2009, which presumably was a copy of Coke 774's 2008 video that has since been set to private on YouTube, and I'm not sure is taken down or at least no longer accessible on Nico. Let me make sure I got the links previously not butchered. Those are slightly butchered. Gosh dang it. I didn't do a dress rehearsal of this. I've never done quite this kind of fancy presentation before. I'm terrible at stuff. Okay, that's all there. That one actually fit. Mediums I did not butcher. And the other one's okay too. Oh wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong pit window. Gosh dang it, it is... Okay. And, yeah, that was terrible. Well, more or less. I mean, whatever. I will have the actual clickable links below the video. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. And I just wanted to get it out there because I haven't seen it talked about a whole lot. That, you know, this fantastic NES version of Championship Edition, which everybody lauded and applauded, and Namco touted as new and, you know, made by the geniuses at M2, they certainly put a nice layer of polish on it, and who knows, maybe there were bigger bugs in the first one that made it hard to play. We don't know that, because as far as it's known, nobody aside from Coke 774 has actually played that original 2008 port to the NES. Although somebody, it looks like, might have got a cartridge of it. But But still, it looks like the vast lion's share of the work, and even just the idea, the sheer crazy idea of taking this graphically intensive modern widescreen 2D game and, you know, high-res 2D game and putting it on an NES. Namco would never have tried that themselves. I mean, let's be real. That just would not have happened without Coke 774's just doing it. Just, you know, they must have just looked at that and said, I bet I could make that work on an NES. I'm going to give that a shot. And they did it. Within, you know, a year of the Xbox 360 version, they did it. And it was pretty much identical to the version that finally got released, except, you know, with an added layer of polish. So, I think it's important to know that. And Coke 774's YouTube channel does not have very many followers. I hope that they get more followers. I think they're doing cool stuff, and they're doing stuff that's worth seeing, and they deserve to get credit for the work they did on this game that so many people love. And, you know, most people who love this NES version probably don't know that it was made by this this homebrew coder who was doing a lot of other cool, similar work. And, so yeah, trying to correct that. So go follow Coke 774's channel. They you know, their videos are in Japanese, they're cryptic, but they're doing some cool looking stuff. And it's, you know, they deserve credit for this. Much more credit than Namco begrudgingly finally gave them after being confronted by irrefutable evidence that no, Namco did not make this themselves, and no, this was not a new game in 2020. It was from 2008 from somebody not Namco. So, yeah. That's what I got. Thanks for watching. See you later.